Hi, and welcome back to a spring special Lake Mead and Colorado River Watch update. Last time we covered all the rain and flooding moving across the southwest, and in a chilling turn of events, many of those systems changed to snow and ice, bringing dangerous conditions and colder weather to many around the higher elevations. And down in the lower basin, right on time just like last year, California was forced to release massive amounts of water in order to make room for more flooding and snowmelt. We're going to see how all this affects the Colorado River system and more, so let's jump right in. After a slow start to the water year in 2024, the atmospheric rivers and moisture finally picked up in February, causing landslides and flooding around parts of the lower basin we covered last update. As we went through March, those low-pressure systems turned into winter storms, dumping heavy accumulations of snow around the higher elevations of California and Nevada. One massive storm dumped over 100 inches of snow in a 72-hour period around the Sierras alone. And right here outside Las Vegas and Lake Mead, the spring mountains were blanketed in fresh snow as systems moved through the valley, dropping up to 10 feet of accumulation in 24 hours around Charleston Peak. Some of this increased activity may even be the product of new cloud seeding studies being carried out by the Desert Research Institute right here in southern Nevada. More on that in just a bit. Just across town from the snow-covered spring mountains, the rainy days at Lake Mead continued on and off, periodically overtaken by sunny days, some of which were getting quite warm already, with highs approaching 80 degrees Fahrenheit before dipping right back into cold and storms. Historically, the average date of 80-degree weather in the Las Vegas Valley is March 14th, so we are right around average, just a little bit behind this year with all the rain and atmospheric rivers lately. You can already feel the heat of summer on its way though, and with it will most likely come the usual drop in our reservoir levels. Let's take a look at where our water levels are at today. Lake Mead is currently sitting at 1,075 feet above sea level, dropping just under a foot in elevation, and no longer rising after a long climb that began last April. The total capacity remains at 37% full. Despite the slight drop, Lake Mead's elevation has still recovered around 30 feet since this time last year. On Mead's graph, you can see the healthy gain it's had since last spring, with water supplies upstream remaining great enough to supply Lake Mead throughout the winter. As of this report, current inflows at Lake Mead are now 124% of average. So Mead has already received a good amount more water than usual this year from Lake Powell and sources upstream. On the downstream side, however, outflows to California, Arizona, and beyond have only totaled 30% of the required yearly release. You can see from this discrepancy in flows that Lake Mead still has a lot of water left to give this year, and the extended recovery I just pointed out was more due to the USBR increasing outflows upstream than it was due to the winter weather which was lacking at the start of the year. The snowpack around the basin did get another small boost since last report, however, with all the activity we just talked about, and it was enough to finally bring the levels as a whole to right around average for this year. And being around average is not a bad thing at all. Quite the opposite, as it looks like we have avoided the so-called whiplash effect that occurs after an extremely wet year. We'll talk about that more in just a second. First, let's look at our snowpack levels compared to last report. After several more systems moved through the southwest, the snow water equivalent in the spring mountains around Las Vegas increased from 105% last update to as high as 215% of median. In the upper basin, including the Rocky Mountains, where snowpack really counts for the health of the Colorado, the snow water equivalent went from 95% last report up to 111% of median. And in the lower Colorado region, including Lake Mead, the snow water equivalent increased slightly from 119% last report to 125% of median. This is great news for our reservoirs, as it looks like we have avoided the whiplash effect this year that I just mentioned. If you go back through the records, you notice patterns that occur where you get a really good water year like last, followed by a really dry water year, with a polar shift from one to the next. That whiplash pattern, however, doesn't appear to be happening this year. Nothing is definite from one season to the next, but for this year in particular, being average is certainly a positive start. Last year in 2023, the all-important upper basin snowpack hit 160% on April 1st, the average peak snowpack date, and the USBR was able to use those bounties to raise our reservoir levels over the past year. With snowpack levels showing around 111% near the peak date this year, We will now wait and see what proceeds melt their way down the tributaries of the Colorado and on into Lake Powell, the main source for Lake Mead in the entire lower basin. Taking a look at Lake Powell today, the water elevation sits at 3,559 feet above sea level, dropping another 3 feet since last report and remaining at 34% of full capacity. Following the same trend as last time, the water levels at Powell have continued to decline over the last year while the USBR attempted to equalize Lake Mead downstream. With the coming heat of summer and increase in water use, especially in lower basin, both reservoirs will be expected to decline in the coming months. The question is, how much will they decline and what is being done to keep more water in them? Let's take a look. Now, it's been a while since we covered any updates to the river compact negotiations or water rights issues. Things really seemed to quiet down after the roaring water year we had in 2023, followed by all the federal drought payouts you'll recall from previous updates. As you river watchers already know, however, one good water year is not going to fix the real issues, nor will several. It's going to take all river basin states working in concert to protect both the river and its growing users through drought and floods for lasting changes to materialize. I'm glad to report that as of this update, the USBR says it has secured one final piece of that puzzle, closing 3 remaining deals with California water entities that will leave nearly 1.3 billion gallons of water in Lake Mead over the next 2 years. That brings the system-wide water savings to a total of approximately 9.7 billion gallons. These 3 agreements were the last among 24 total that represent a collective investment in the Colorado River's future. Together, the agreements are expected to conserve more than 1.58 million acre-feet of water with an investment of up to $670 million. That investment money will be used for so-called compensated conservation or demand management programs, which means that the federal government is paying farmers who hold much of the lower basin's water rights not to grow crops, so that more water is available for general use. But that is just the start. With the USBR and river basin states finally agreeing to a plan through 2026, just a few short years away, they now begin to prepare for what happens after that. With the good news being said, as many of you already know, California still has its fair share of water and resource issues, and unfortunately some of those issues have ended up spilling over to affect the Colorado River system. And when I say spilling, I literally mean spilling. In a nearly identical repeat of our updates from this time last year, massive amounts of water were released from reservoirs like Lake Shasta and Lake Oroville in California in order to make room for the coming storms and snowmelt. And with no new storage being built in California, this trend looks to continue over the next several years. In February, the California Department of Water Resources opened the spillway at Oroville Dam to release water ahead of flooding and winter storms. At Lake Shasta, more than 265 billion gallons of water were released from the reservoir for that same reason. For comparison, normal wintertime releases from Lake Shasta usually total around 3 million gallons per day. California has reportedly released the most water on record so far this year. When the warm months and water use ramp up as mentioned before, the users that rely on this water would then be facing shortages, restrictions, droughts, and wildfire, seemingly wondering, where did all the water go? And even though reservoirs like Lake Shasta are not directly tied into the Colorado River, or even close to it geographically, water from the reservoir can reach as far south as Bakersfield, 450 miles away, via the Central Valley Project. Bakersfield also happens to be the beneficiary of Colorado River water from some 300 miles to the east through another canal, the Colorado River Aqueduct. When water levels are lacking and demand upstream is high, end users like Bakersfield must then rely more on other sources like the Colorado River or local groundwater. So now you begin to see how the river has been inextricably linked to the other reservoirs and distant water users that are well outside its region. This idea of using water outside its local watersheds was one of the key tenets that John Wesley Powell originally warned against when planning out development in the West. Though each one of these water infrastructure problems seemed to be well separated from the Colorado River system, upon further investigation, each one is far-reaching and takes its small cumulative toll on the river and reservoirs upstream, eventually adding up to a big problem that we have clearly seen manifest over the last several years at Lake Mead. But there are many people who are trying to remedy the water situation. Some are doing it through conservation, while others are literally attempting to make it rain in the mountains and deserts around southern Nevada. According to the Desert Research Institute, who started a new cloud seeding project last year, scientists are pretty confident that cloud-seeded areas can produce about 10% more snowfall than if there was no cloud seeding at all. And though it might seem like science fiction or even a conspiracy to some, cloud seeding has been a part of the job for DRI scientists for more than half a century, dating back to the early 1960s. DRI's research involves placing several cloud seeding stations at locations around the Spring Mountains and Red Rock Canyon outside Las Vegas, like this one pictured on the way to Pahrump. Last June, Nevada Governor Joe Lombardo signed Senate Bill 99 into law, which allocated $1.2 million to the Desert Research Institute through 2025 to specifically bolster cloud seeding projects. Could this be part of the reason we've had such wild weather around Lake Mead in Las Vegas over the last 2 winters? If you recall from last update, I reported there was even a rare occurrence of fog over the Las Vegas Strip. Coincidence? Or cloud seeding success? Let us know what you think in the comments below. I think I'll have to go a bit deeper into the story in the next Colorado River Watch podcast and cover how cloud seeding works because this topic is really fascinating to me and we just don't have enough time for it here today. Like always, I'll leave my sources down in the description below so you can read up on this story in the meantime. And whether it's cloud seeding, rainstorms, or snowpack, we can definitely use all the water we can get here in the Las Vegas Valley, as the city is continually expanding up into the mountains and out into the desert. Recently, the governor also called on the federal government to release more public lands to the city so that they can be sold to private developers for more residential construction. The goal is to bring more affordable home prices to the valley with more inventory, though we rarely see this happen, especially considering the type of luxury mega builders and institutional cash buyers that have descended on the Las Vegas Valley. One example of this new public-private partnership already unfolding can be seen happening just outside Lake Mead at the old Three Kids mine site, a toxic Superfund site that was recently sold to the city of Henderson and will be reclaimed, then developed by Pulte Homes. We did a whole video covering the history of this site and the community that will soon be built on top. You might be surprised to find out who is going to end up paying the bill in the end also. I'll leave a link here in the video so you can check it out. It really sums up the situation unfolding in the growing Southwest. We know you have a lot of places to get your news and entertainment these days, and we want to thank you for spending some of that time here. Special recognition goes out to all our Super Thanks viewers from last update. We got Sammy Head, D-Claw Daddy, B. Shingle Decker, Von Ziegel, Creamy Nougat, and Terrell Johnson 6647. Thank you for supporting small creators like us. The super thanks are always unexpected but much appreciated, and we're just really glad that some of you folks are enjoying the content. If you found this video informative and or learned something of value here today, consider giving us a like and subscribing to the channel for more. Until next time, we'll see you over on our second channel for more desert adventure. So make sure you stay hydrated, stay happy out there, and we'll catch you soon.